Welcome to the Tea Party. Today is the second installation of The Power of Creating It. Starting with today is bringing Amber Jackson of the Black Leaf Tea to talk all things Black womanhood, entrepreneurship, and how are we trying to balance it all. So grab some tea, come back, relax, and get into this conversation that we're having today. All right. Okay.
There we go. Hi.
Hey, Amber, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yes, hair.
I
Yes.
got somewhere to be this weekend, so I have to get it done.
Indeed. I got a couple days, and so my hair is kind of holding on by, a thread at this moment, but we gonna make it work. Thanks so much for joining us. We decided to do this Power of Creating It series to really celebrate Black History, Women's History Month with Black women. How about that? So
There we
Black
go.
Women History Month this March, and we want to celebrate Black women who are entrepreneurs, who are getting it done. And I'm going to make a title real quick. But while I'm doing that, Amber, can you just tell us a little bit about you, about the Black Leaf Tea Company, and how you decided to come up with it?
Yeah, so thank you again for having me. Like you said, my name is Amber Jackson. I'm the owner and operator of the Black Leaf Tea and Culture Shop. So it is an online loose leaf tea and herbal blends company that also uses its platform to celebrate Black culture and engage the community through some programming that I do. So I do a monthly Young Black Professionals event and a conversation series called Tea Talks. I am a Chicago native
Eh?
living in Providence, Rhode Island. So that says a lot on its own.
I love it. Thanks so much. So why tea? What brought you to tea? I have been to tea. I went to I did a study exchange in Europe when I was a teenager. And at tea time at 4 o'clock is very serious. Everything stops, you pause, you take your tea, you nap, and then you reset and you come back for like family dinner. So what brought you to tea and your love for tea?
Yeah, honestly, it was something I grew up on. So I drank tea growing up a lot. So my household was more of a holistic, you drink some tea and take a nap if something's wrong, unless it's something serious wrong, and that's the only way you get a Tylenol. Um, I think also just growing up, I've always had a love for food and flavor and things like that. So I actually did another interview this morning. He's like, "Yeah, I did my research. So your mom used to call you slow and steady." I just died laughing. I was like, "Yes," because I will sit there and take an entire hour to eat a single plate of food because
That is crazy.
I genuinely love and appreciate the experience of flavor. And so, even academically, my background is in food science. So, undergrad, I studied nutrition and food science. Grad school, food science, concentrating in product development. So, everything's kind of worked together with me creating my business.
Did you see this as a vision, going into college or in grad school, or was it after that?
It was well after that. So, I, in school, I wanted to play with food. I wanted to create new flavors. And so it wasn't until I got to, I think, my second year of grad school and I realized, like, oh, I should have been a corporate chef working in a test kitchen because I hate working in labs. I I don't like the isolation of working in labs. Like, I'm not the most isolated person, but I also enjoy people. And
Right.
it is, I was just like, I was miserable in grad school. But no, I think I just have it kind of just came along at the right time. I think for me, I can genuinely say, I can look back on my life and say, like, um, alignment has been almost divine, where I
Yeah.
can literally pinpoint, like, A went to B and B went to C. Like, I can pinpoint everything. If this did not happen, I would not be here. And so, in a shorter way, when I was in grad school, my university, I never got the full story, but they somehow lost my research grant. And of course, as a
Wow.
GA, that's how I pay rent.
Right.
So my friend worked in athletics. He was like, "Oh, you used to be a D1 athlete. We have a spot over here. Just come meet with Dr. Miles." I met with her, got the job, and I loved it.
Wow.
And I went home to Chicago for about a year and a half after graduation to be with my mom. After that year and a half, I was tired of her. She was tired of me. So like I could leave again, bet. Because I like to have my own space. And for me, my own space means an entire region to myself.
Indeed.
And
Relatable.
yes. And so when it was funny because I left my collegiate athletic career so early. Once you leave it that early, it's very hard to get back in. And so I had applied to a lot of jobs for about 6 months or so before I landed the job at Brown.
Okay.
It wasn't exactly what I wanted, but it got me back into the door.
Okay.
And even speaking of alignment, when I was at A&M for grad school, I interviewed at the American Athletic Conference in 2015, which was in Providence, Rhode Island. And
Wow.
so I actually visited Rhode Island about a year and a half before I got the job at Brown.
Wow. And then you ended up there again.
Yeah, working
You
at Brown.
mentioned a couple things, and last week we talked to Nate Marie
Mm-hmm.
with Taji, and one of the things you mentioned as well is like your mother and her influence on you with your love of like food and flavors, and I feel the same with my love for community. And I think a lot of times people think this path is linear, right? Some people I think get it at
Yeah,
8 years old. They know exactly what they want to be. They go after it, and it's just straight line. But I think for so many people, it is step by step, piece by piece, and what you're saying, right? That the next step led to the next step. And I think what I can think looking back is like, oh, this was the design probably all along. This is who I am.
exactly.
This is an extension of a family and legacy and love. And so I think that's beautiful to tap into that. One of the things, and I love that you have a full science degree. I mean, that I think takes, what my dream aside from that is like, I really wanted to be a pizza test taster, just pizza. And they was like, yeah, you got to go like to culinary school. Like, I said, oh, never mind.
No, you don't.
I just want to taste the food. Like,
It's honestly there's so many routes. Once again, nothing has a linear path. Like even now finding that if I was not got off of fear of adding onto my grad school student loans, I would absolutely go back to school for either food history or for wine studies. So actually, once this becomes stable, my next venture is going into becoming a sommelier. But
yes.
This has haunted me since I did this. So I was a track athlete in undergrad,
Okay.
and so I think it was my sophomore year. I had already qualified for regionals early, and I had taken food engineering.
Okay.
And my professor was so impressed with me, he invited me to do the study abroad program.
Nice.
The study abroad program was a wine appreciation course.
Nice. So you just like the female version of court.
I did not go because in my little immature mind, I was a student athlete and I qualified for regionals. So I can't go because I'm a student athlete on full scholarship.
Yeah.
And I'm in this school because I'm an athlete, also academically too. But this is what pays my bills of being here. So
right.
It has haunted me since because they went to Greece, Italy, and France wine tasting for the summer, and my dumb ass didn't go. And I've been haunted by it ever since. And so I'm like, you know what?
You can still go.
Yes. And so I'm going to Italy actually this June, but it's just like
I love.
And it's actually going to be my first time out the country ever. I've been to Canada, but I don't count that as going out the country.
You're going to love it. Italy is beautiful. That's the last place I went before the pandemic. So, and I went with Jennifer, who you know from around.
Yeah.
And it blew me away. And of course the wine. So I'm looking forward to it. But let's speak about that. And like, you have the tea blends and we'll get to that. But you have these, first of all, let's talk about quality. Because, there's levels to this tea game, right? Mm-hmm. You have the Lipton black tea that you grew up on, that you felt like that was tea.
It was standard. It was a standard. Yeah.
And you know what? As to your point, like our parents used it when we got sick, and the steam and the black tea, it worked. You know what I'm saying? It helped. It did what it needed to do. That's all. That's all I knew for a while.
Yeah, yeah.
And then for me, one of the things that began to elevate the tea, Oprah did this. I think she did a show too, but then she did this Tivana partnership. And my mom loves Oprah, and she knew I loved tea. And
Yep.
so beginning to go to Tivana at the store and being able to see all these different blends and then taste them and just realize I didn't know anything about tea.
I feel like honestly, like even for myself, like my knowledge of tea was very thin, other than like I know green tea, I know the oxidation process, but learning like the cultivation, how lighting affects it, the time, how a drought or overwatering could affect the flavoring of the leaf. So it's a lot that goes into it. And so I did a lot of research, a lot of like independent learning when I first started. It also just linking like Michelle. So I buy my tea leaves from a local vendor named Michelle Chang, and so she owns a tea shop here in Rhode Island called Ceremony Tea. It's actually on Brown's campus, but
Nice.
she actually goes to China, Japan, and Taiwan, and she'll stay with the farmers for a couple weeks at a time. So she is
Wow.
extremely particular. So I more than trust buying from her. But even then, like she mentors me a lot. So I know when she went to Japan right before the pandemic, I think she was there for about 2 weeks and she stayed with the farmer, and they let her take pictures and do some short recordings of the process of making ceremony and matcha. And so being
Wow.
shocked when they're like in the room and these like almost look like a hazmat suit, and they devein each leaf by hand. So I'm like, what you get from Dunkin' is
Wow.
not the ceremonial
Not it.
matcha. It's like a commercial grade, but like they have the different tarps for the different lightings to get the certain flavor. They, like I said, they are deveining. Can you imagine sitting in, let's say, in fall season, leaves are on the ground. You sit there, you take each leaf and you peel each vein off one by one.
Well, you know, the thing about it is we do have some of those rituals, right? So we do that with greens and green peas,
Exactly.
uh, picking black eyed peas. Like those are
Mm-hmm.
things
Snapping peas.
that we
Yeah.
used to do. And even going back to like even Caribbean culture, like where they
Mm-hmm.
make their own ginger
Yes.
teas, and it's just part of the ritual. And I
Mm-hmm.
think we have just gotten away from that. I remember peppermint tea and
Yeah.
people grabbing some leaves from the I remember that from like my grandparents' generation,
Mm-hmm.
that I feel like we have lost in this need for speed. But I wanted to talk about your quality. So I ordered I believe, Chi Town first. And I am a chai fanatic. Like you can plug up an IV for me and just give me chai. But your quality, I think, with the teas is just so visual. It's a whole experience, right? So it's
Mm-hmm.
visual. It is smell. It's
Mm-hmm.
taste. It is just a whole experience. So tell me a little bit about like how quality is um you know prioritize in your business.
I think first and foremost for me, it's important that anything that my name is on is going to be done right.
Indeed.
Also because when I design these teas, these are all my designs, and so I put so much of myself into the things that I design. So it's not just like you create it for commercial reasons to make money, but I want to create an experience in the cup, really.
Right.
So even the names of them, it's like Money, Lotus, Chi-Town. So Chi-Town's also my home, Chicago. Each of them, I want to create an experience and a feeling for each customer. So you have to take your time and find the best quality, finding the actual measurements, the actual recipe that works best to really incite that feeling. So I think that is why it's such a big priority to me, is because, like I said, slow and steady. For me, flavor is, for me, it is almost ceremonial. It is
It
a
is.
spiritual kind of vibe for me. Like I will sit there, and like even with me, before food science, I wanted to be a chef. And I learned like how competitive it was. I was like, yeah, nope, so I'm going to be a scientist. But even then, like, I think that once again, want to go into like food history. It's amazing because you can tell a story about
Mm.
someone or something. I can tell you who I am in a spoon.
Absolutely. And I think I have gotten that. I have quite a few blends now,
Mm.
where they are. I think home is kind of my next favorite because it's
Yeah.
um it's herbal and I don't need to do anything so quick and dirty. I have levels, you know, I have my cheap Trader Joe's. I don't have time. I just need to throw something in there,
Yeah.
get something real quick. And then I have my loose leaves that I love, and then how it slows you down, both in like needing to prepare it, but then also in the taste and the sipping of it, that it creates pause, right? It creates
Yeah.
this pause in this ceremony. And I think this ritual around Black people and Black wellness, right? And how that connects for me is like, you know, of course, different teas have various health benefits, and we can kind of talk about that. But then also, I think there's a need for pause that a lot of Black people and Black women
Yes.
specifically do not get or take for themselves. And I think we're just now beginning to enter an era that we're pushing rest as a modality of wellness. So let's talk about a little bit how you feel tea and wellness intersect, and then how do you create rest for yourself and pause for yourself?
Yeah, I think just what you said, it really incites encourages people to take a minute. So even like the process, so you know it's an extra step from a bag to just pop it in a cup, pour water on top. But no, you have to actually like scoop it out yourself. You may have a favorite infuser or a favorite mug that you want to use, and just being able to sit and encourage stillness, really. And like you said, in the Black community, I feel like we are, you know, oftentimes we find ourselves constantly in the sense of struggle and you know trying to outdo each other so many
Right.
times, and you're just constantly trying to kind of I guess excel to a certain level of Black excellence.
Oof.
I feel like but also I think that we put that label on so many things. It's great we have to have a standard, absolutely, but at what point is it you recognizing like, you know, everyone has a sense of excellence. And so I think it's also just finding that in yourself and not, you know, comparing of other people.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But even in business, I think, you know, especially in the earlier phases, because of social media, you can see someone and be like, oh, they're doing great. You have no idea that they're almost a week away from being broke. You have no
Exactly.
idea how much they cried and the
Right.
headaches. And even like, you know, especially now, I'm trying to be much more conscious of my wellness, just reading more about like people like me. I just turned 30, but I think last year I read an article of this 27-year-old. She was an entrepreneur also, and she had a stroke
Yeah.
at 27.
Yeah. Yeah.
People having brain aneurysms, heart attacks
Yeah.
at early 30s. Like this is insane, but also the amount of stress, societal stress also, but a lot of stresses that we put on ourselves also by comparing and trying to achieve a certain standard. But I think for myself, shout out to my therapist. But
Hey.
I learned that for me to achieve a certain level of peace, I have to place value in who I am and less of what I do. Um,
Oh, that's a word. Let's repeat that
I
again.
yes, I think for me, like yes, I think well one, I knowing who I am. My mother's a single mother. My parents are divorced. I was raised in the house with my mother, my aunt, my grandmother, and my great grandmother.
Wow, that's a
And
blessing.
yes, my great grandmother, she passed when I was 15. She was 98. So she
Wow.
had to see her kids, grandkids, and great grandkids grow up. But she had my grandmother was her first child. She had her at 40
Wow.
in
Wow.
1957. And she had my great aunt. I think she's 3 or 5 years younger than my grandmother. One of them. But I was raised by women, and I'm also the only girl in my family. I have brothers and I have boy cousins. So
Wow.
a lot of pressure's on me. It was very much you raise your daughters and you love your sons, so like you baby your sons, but I'm the only daughter or female young body in the
Right.
household. And so I think for me at a younger age, really recognizing like, why do I have to be the one that excels and be exceptional and they get to do whatever? And so the only loud applause I get is when I'm on honor roll, when I make
Yeah.
state champion, when I'm excelling academically or athletically. That's when I get the most praise. But is, you know, for me, and I think that's one thing also, especially now being 30, looking back and going through therapy, I
Right.
think first and foremost, acknowledging that they did the best with what they had.
Absolutely.
You can't give what you don't have, but no, as you know,
Absolutely.
they just didn't have it to give. But also understanding that, you know, my grandmother's divorced, my mom's divorced, my great grandmother's a widow, my aunt, she ain't on here, should be divorced. Um,
That's the tea.
Girl, we've been here for 20 plus years and they ain't got no better. But I think that yeah, I think a lot of for them it was a lot of achieving some things through me because of them. But also, once again, I grew up in, I'm from Inglewood, it's Southside Chicago, so I grew up in the hood, but also understanding the amount of privileges that I had because of them.
Yeah.
It just this amount of support that I have, also the pressures of it. But I do acknowledge that, you know, one, I know where it comes from, so what are you going to do about it? And so I'm having to actively choose to work on placing that, reallocating the value of my life. So like I said, lessen what I do. So I'm not looking for the good job, Amber, and the love and praise that I only get when I do great things.
Right.
And just being like, you know, you are a good person. You are a kind person. You are a very loving person.
Right.
You have boundaries and you respect your boundaries.
Right.
And so I think that is much easier said than done, but it's a lot of work.
It is. It's a lot of unlearning. You said so many great things. One of the things that stood out for me, of course, is this living in a multi-generational home, which is something that used to be more common than it is now. I think one of the things we see with this assimilation of Black people moving into more capitalistic, you know, we going to more individuality than more of community. But I think there's so many lessons and rituals, some good, some bad. But definitely lessons of being able to watch several generations go through life, figure life out. It started raining. So I'm like, what's the noise? And so I think that's a beautiful testament in how that begins to shape you. I am an only child, so I kind of resonate with some of the things about the expectations. All their eggs were in this basket, like so I needed to produce. And again, you know, rewarded for you know, great grades and excelling and doing things. But I do think there was a value system too on character, right? And showing up right, integrity, and I really appreciate and loving people and you know, supporting people. And both my mom and my dad did that very authentically in their spaces, and so being able to see that visually, I think has shaped my life's work and how I show up. I think one of the things too we don't talk about a lot in this Instagram world, social media world, is everyone sees the glitz and the glam. So they're like, oh, Amber, you're CEO, you're founder, you got it together. And
please,
this shit is hard. Like
I can authentically, honestly say I had a mini mental breakdown last week alone.
Indeed.
So full transparency, I started therapy because in the past I had a harder time managing my anxiety and depression. And it was after I moved to Rhode Island, I started my job at Brown. So at Brown, I managed all 38 of our collegiate athletic teams by myself.
What?
It's yes. So Brown,
and you're so young.
You would think so.
That is a lot.
It's a lot of work. Plus, I started my business a year and a half after I moved here. So I'm doing my business plus managing them. And it was actually, I think I started my business a little bit after, I launched it a little bit after I started therapy, I believe. Okay. But it was actually, I was with Jen, actually. We went to lunch and I was just kept telling her, like, something's wrong. So I don't know what it is, but something's off. And then lo and behold, the next day I got to work and I couldn't stop crying. Could not tell you what it was. Nothing triggered me. I physically felt fine, but I couldn't stop crying. Right. I would go back and forth to the bathroom downstairs to get myself together, come back to my desk, and it was just like I need help. Something is wrong. And I think it was that day or the day after, I literally just Googled Black woman therapist in Rhode Island, and one popped up because it's Rhode Island. And I remember calling her, and I was just heartbroken because her voice went straight to voicemail. And she's like, no, thanks for calling. Right. I'm not taking any new clients right now, but call back in the next couple of months. I'm like, couple of months? Like, girl, I need you now. I was like, what do you mean months? But I called back and I got her, and she was phenomenal to work with. And I was very intentional about being better.
Yeah.
And so we worked together for a little over a year and a half, and I got to the point where I didn't have much to talk about anymore. And so we paused my sessions. But even that was so timely and I think imperative to when I started my business because there's a lot of not just stress, but there's a lot of transparency and authenticity that comes with starting a business. Because not just starting a business, you're creating a brand.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
beginning stages of your business, you are your brand. And it takes a lot to be that vulnerable to allow people in your space and that much into your life. Whereas it's like, I enjoy my privacy. On my personal Instagram page, I might post like some funny stuff in like the stories, but I enjoy my privacy. And so I think doing the work in privacy and with my therapist was imperative to me growing my brand from the beginning of my business because I've started to become. I think I tell people all the time, like I didn't grow into like my full grown womanhood to like 26, going to 27 or whatever.
You
Because
hadn't
like,
even started, girl. So I read this article when I was 29,
mm-hmm.
and I had a breakdown, thinking I was when I turned 30, my life is about to be over.
Oh.
Uh, Hey, and so I read this article in Essence, and it was about Nia Long, and she's basically like, when you turn 30, you're not even half of the woman that you will become. Like you're not even half of her.
Yeah.
And now I've just turned 40 in January, and when I say she was right, and
Now, see,
even now
that's what
I
I'm
feel like
excited for. Because for me personally, like I said, because I started therapy at like 27, I was so excited to turn 30. Like, I asked
no,
my friend Chloe, I was like, yeah, like a little nervous. She's like, girl, don't nothing would happen when you turn 30, but you turn 30. I was like, and she was right. It was like, but honestly, just like I think because I was so gun ho about doing the work on myself, it's just like I'm excited about 30.
yes,
And and I think also just like generationally, it was our parents talking about some I started acting like old ladies at 30. It's just like, girl, I will be on a yacht in June in the Amalfi shaking my ass. The little bit that I got in the
hey,
Amalfi this June. Like, what old lady? Like, please. Life is starting for
exactly.
me. Like
Exactly. I agree. Definitely generational, and like
mm-hmm,
I think we're really redefining what that is
mm-hmm,
at each level. And we have, Mary J. Blige and Taraji and Regina Hall, who I think Nia Long, who just are the epitome of like
mm-hmm.
aging on your own terms. I did the same thing. So let's talk about that as far as business transition. When
Mm-hmm.
I've been having through therapy for a lot of reasons. One for loss, I had a stillborn, and then I
Mm-hmm.
began to really and I went to a white therapist at that time.
Okay.
Just all the insurance, like I wasn't really intentional about it, even though I had studied psychology at Howard. Like I was trying to get somewhere. And then by the time I began to go to Black therapists, I realized there was definitely a much better environment, a definitely shift in the
Yeah.
way I approach therapy. And then I realized it was a disconnect in how our community was, especially then, we're talking about 15, almost 20 years ago, like how we were connecting with our community. And at that point, nobody's really talking about it. And so that was really kind of beginning the launching pad for starting with today. But at the time when I was ready to transition and really begin to put this to work, there were several therapists that I worked with over the years. But one of the therapists I worked in when I first launched was very significant. I had another therapist by the time I was ready to exit my job, and we worked through strategies and stress management and time management and prioritization, to really begin to get what needs to happen in the next 6 months, what needs to happen. I believe we started maybe 18 months out when I was there. I was about to quit,
Okay.
and beginning to really get a grasp on my anxiety during that time, and then begin really to shift into time management and an exit strategy. And I use my employer's EAP benefits for that. And it was, really helpful as far as the process, because starting a business and going to full-time entrepreneurship, as you know, is
Not easy.
it is I would say one of the most excruciating, soul stretching a person can do. Like,
That's the
I feel
nice
like
way
my
of saying it.
soul just got stretched. And
Yes.
I quit about 6 months before the pandemic. So I didn't know the pandemic, of course, was
Ooh.
coming.
Yeah.
Do not recommend quitting for a pandemic. Do
Oh
not.
my
Zero
goodness.
stars. Zero stars.
Yeah.
But I've learned so much. It feels like I have been in a master class of life, like just really like a PhD Hayes program of life in entrepreneurship, and what it's taking to get, my head just back above water, which I feel like is where I am now, and then begin to see the vision of where we're headed moving forward. But I do appreciate now, and I was the same way. Like I used to keep my accounts locked. I used to this is personal, this is business. So now it's like, what is my authentic self that I can bring to all my spaces? And that way it's less tedious, you know what I'm saying, for me. And to integrate, both where it's not gimmicky, but like my authentic voice. And I think there's some people who do that really well. I think for me, Issa does that really well. Issa Rae. I think from there I began to kind of say, oh, okay, well, I cuss in real life, so I can cuss here. I don't dress up, regularly, so I can kind of come how I would normally show up in my spaces better, and that be accepted, and that be good enough, and that be worthy enough. And I think that's kind of what this thing, like excellence on our own terms, right, and not necessarily what we think about as white standards.
Yeah. And I would say, yeah, just transitioning. So for me, it's been 4 months, almost 4 months.
You're doing it.
Great. This is hard.
I will say but you're doing it.
So my business will be 3 years old next month, but I am 4 months into full-time entrepreneurship. And so I think you did the right way. We paused my sessions a year and a half ago, I think. And I am considering, I am going to go back to therapy, because this has been the most trying thing I've ever done. This is hands down the hardest thing I've ever done in my life.
It is. And last year, one of the things, not last year, 2 years ago, when the pandemic first started, last time. And I had a call with my mom, and she said I just sounded off, and she saw this at the time, the insurance gap, and she was like, I saw on TV that Taraji was giving away free therapy sessions, so I signed you up, and I looked for a therapist, and just need to schedule an appointment.
Come on, mama.
Come on, come through, mama.
Right.
Because at that time, I really didn't have enough. I was drowning, so I didn't have enough cognitive capacity to really work through like an email, a search, and all that. And she paired me up with a therapist out of Bethesda, Maryland, a Black lady, and she is phenomenal. So where my other therapist was great getting me to this point, and she had like her master's, and she was great. This one has like a PhD, and she's like done international work, and she's like she's that girl. So it is getting to the root of stuff versus the symptoms of stuff. And it's so much work. But to your point, it's like therapy only works
if you work with it.
I've had homework
assignments. I've had to go and report back to her kind of things. But I think for me, it is, entrepreneurship is full-time entrepreneurship is a very trying thing, where now I am truly at the mercy of the consumer.
Right.
And that is hard, where I am so used to having so much control. I feel like if I have a slow month, that's okay, because I still have a check coming in. Like my bills are still paid. Now where even just the timing of it, like I left my job fresh out of the startup phase and new to the growth phase. And the thing with the growth phase is no one talks about the amount of capital required for a scale up. And so, and not just that, most of the state grants, at least for Rhode Island, most of the state grants now are solely designated for COVID. Even now, it's still COVID designated. But for someone like me, where I actually made money in the pandemic, not a lot, like I'm not balling, but it was beyond their standards of me needing money. But I'm also a sole entrepreneur. I run my business, even to this day, I run my business recycling revenue. But
Right.
now I have to pay myself. I need help. And so I had to hire, I chose to hire a strategy team because it's like, okay, I was ready to grow it. Um, but yeah, it's just the strain. Like it's kind of before I worked full time. I had the excuse of like where I'm tired. I gotta go to work. I can't have to reschedule meetings, or Amber's busy because she's working full time. But now, I think I was also shocked when the curtains pulled back and it's like there's so much to do. And I remember one of my friends, he called me the week after I left Brown, and he was like, "So how's it going?" I was like, "There's only 24 hours in a day. So what the hell am I supposed to do with this? Like, it's so much to do."
So
And
much
like
to do.
emails alone, it like they are forever to get through, just emails and people just asking for to sponsor tea. It's like, no, I cannot keep giving away free tea. Like, yes, I
Right.
can write off of my taxes, but I get that. No, that's next year. Like, my
Right.
bills are due today.
Exactly.
So even then, like learning to when to say no to some things.
Yes.
Ultimately, like, I think I've done a pretty good job of like maneuvering in the way in which my business is organically going.
Yeah.
But even like now, my individual sales are down, but my wholesales are skyrocketing. So
Good.
that's where my main attention is. And also, like, I chose to be an online business from the jump in 2019 because I did not want to limit myself to Rhode Island.
Right.
Because this is a coffee and beer. I can say coffee. It's a Dunkin' and beer region.
Wow.
And
Didn't know
so,
that.
yes, well, Dunkin' is headquartered in Boston, an hour
Okay.
away. So it's all, you cannot go more than 20 yards and not see a Dunkin' somewhere around here. But even this way, I am a national brand.
Right.
Growing a national brand by yourself is
A
really, really
dope
hard.
national brand. And if you have not ordered Black Leaf Tea, do yourself a favor just for the marketing and packaging and presentation
Thank you.
alone. You will be blown away. Like blown away. Like it's so good. It's so intentional. It's so inspiring. And I think one of the things too, like, definitely I think a lot of people thought, there's been, of course, the PPP scandal and like, people thinking like, oh, you're good. Like, no, we've had to like, rely on basically goodwill and,
Mhm.
showing up and keeping the doors open for sure. So I definitely get that. And I think, talk a little bit about scale. So let's talk about that. Now, it's something we uh, skyrocketed during COVID as far as reach and programming. But our funding didn't necessarily catch up with it. And
Okay.
so like, we're just now beginning to catch up to what it needs to be to sustain that, right? So let's talk a little bit about scaling since and what has been, your biggest pain point and what has been your biggest like joy in the scaling piece.
I'll start up with the joy because I don't want people to think it's all doom and gloom when it comes to entrepreneurship. I
Yeah.
think for me, it's really expanding the branding and having people really just say like they genuinely enjoy not just my teas and the blends I create, but they enjoy the programming that I have.
Yeah.
And so I not well didn't create Young Black Professionals is not new. It is originally like a subgroup of the Urban League.
Yeah.
And when I moved here, I looked for the Urban League, which is apparently inactive. Like I'm from
Mm.
Chicago, went to undergrad and grad school down south, and so it is unheard of to experience an inactive urban league.
Right.
And then the closest one is in Boston, an hour away. I'm not driving an
Right.
hour to Boston to have these kind of programs, so I just created it on my own.
Nice.
Um, just really having experience was like, well, being new to this area and not really exploring it as much, but off the back, if I'm coming for a job, you're going to go around where your job is, which for me is east side of Providence, where Brown is,
Right.
and it is very white.
Right.
And so my coworkers, very nice people, they would take me out to places, and I was either the only Black person or the only Black woman in the bar, restaurant, whatever. And of course, it's a very uncomfortable feeling. And so I know if I had, as a transplant, if I had this experience, other ones did as well. And they also did too, because I would meet people after a while and they're like, yeah, I can't wait to leave because why would I stay if I don't see me here?
Right.
So just creating those spaces to really amplify the beings of Black people and their voices as well, which is what I create the Tea Talks for. So I replicated that from The Grapevine. It's a YouTube series by Ashley Acuna. And so it's basically open conversations discussing current events, cultural topics, dating, sex, relationships, whatever that affects us on a day-to-day basis. And pre-pandemic, I had it in person.
Nice.
It was a Black-only space.
Nice.
So ironically, most of my customers are white women, and they were very, very respectful. Like, they would ask, like, "Hey, can we come just listen?" I was like, "No, I appreciate your support, but this is for us because I don't want them to feel like that to like bite their tongue or potentially hold back on offended." Like, no,
Right.
for us. But it's also not a kumbaya circle. Like, I encourage you all to, like, first and foremost, listen to, understand and not respond, but actually listen to each other and challenge ideas, because that's how progression happens. It's a
Absolutely.
challenging of ideas and understanding that your way of thinking is not the sole way of thinking, that you're not always right also. So it was really a space to amplify these voices and challenge ideas. So I was really happy that I got to create that, especially when the pandemic hit. I had to switch to doing it virtually, but that allowed me to have a much broader audience. And
Yep.
so my first virtual one was Black Girls Gardening, and I had Dominique from Plots and Plants from DC.
Absolutely. Very familiar.
Yeah, I had two people here in Rhode Island, so Georgina and Q, and then I also had Erica from Urban Collective in Chicago.
Nice.
And so I got to have these women here talking about food insecurities, how important gardening it is to food securities and food deserts. I also had a discussion after that discussing racism in the hospitality industry. So I
Wow.
had people from here, LA, Atlanta, and Chicago. And so it just allowed me to reach a much broader bandwidth of people. They may not have even heard of my brand, but they loved the conversation and they stayed for that. And I got more customers. I was able to retain people and retain the audience from that
Absolutely.
also. So that was definitely the great part of it. Um, I would say as far as scaling, it has not been easy, mainly because of funding. So like I said,
Yeah.
everything has been COVID geared, and because of, typical standards, I don't make the cut because I made too much money.
Right.
Fortunately, because my mom is no longer raising two kids by herself, she has a little money to herself. And
Right.
so in December, was it no, November, I applied for my first business loan.
Okay.
I did not get it.
Okay.
I was in my bank. Because while that year I made a lot of money, or the year before, that year I made a lot of money, they went off my tax numbers from the year before, which is it was low because I just started my business. I was like, but I made this much. I was like, well, they go off the year before. So I didn't get it. But my mom I remember her say, like, if you don't get it, let me know. I was like, let you know. Like,
Right.
what you gonna do? And so she was like, because I asked for 40 grand and I didn't get it. She said, well, how much do you like realistically need? I was like, really, the whole 40 grand? And she's like, I can't do that. She's like, I can do 20. I'm like, where the hell you get 20 grand for?
Wow.
And so, yeah, my mom.
Mama's be coming through.
Like, I will say one thing about my mom. She be damned to let me fail.
That's real.
If she can help, she will. And so she gave me 20 grand, and I used that to expand stuff. So we did like a small rebranding with before. I'm doing the last bit actually now because I have my first trade show in 2 weeks.
Nice.
But even from there, it's like, once again, like, no one, I think there's a lot of investment in the startup area. So, just getting your initial lineup of products or services,
Right.
your initial like branding material, your logo and things like that. You should also be doing your legitimacy, your legality. So your LLC, if you do a trademark, copyrights, that should all be done. At least be started. At least the LLC should be done in that phase. I know for me personally, I did a bundle deal with my lawyer. We did my LLC, my trademark together.
Oh, dope.
But like I said, like, no one really talks about the amount of effort, the amount of capital, the overall work that goes into the growth and expansion phase. And I think that a lot of businesses, like even myself, I say it was a slap in the face. It's like, what do you mean? Like, how much is this? Packaging alone is expensive. Shipping large quantities at a time is expensive.
Yeah.
And it's especially expensive to do when you don't have money.
Yeah.
It's like, I can't hire a team. I like now, I know I need to hire 3 part-time people.
Right.
I have no funds to do so. So now I need to start fundraising sometime soon.
Yeah.
But that's like fundraiser is not like, you know, when you were a kid and you had the world's best chocolates to sell or popcorn to sell. Like, no, you're asking for six figures.
Right. Exactly.
What
Exactly.
systems do you have? But also that too, what systems do you have in place to prove to me that if I donate this money, or if I'm an investor, if I'm
Right.
investing this much money into your business, that I'm going to get that back plus some?
Right.
At what point are you willing to give up some equity?
Right.
If you are, you know, at some point you're going to start thinking about your exit strategy. At some point, I think for me, I've acknowledged that, you know, my background's in science and not business. And so there may come a point where for my business to continue to grow into an international brand that I
Right.
want it to be,
Yeah.
I may have to step away. I still have a stake in the business, but I
Right.
may no longer be the owner. And I
Absolutely.
have to be okay with that because
Yeah.
I have knowledge of the business where I am now. I don't have international merchandising experience.
Right.
And so there may come a
Yes.
day that I'm gonna have to take a step out, but like, you know what? I still have a 35-40% stake in the business, but this is now yours. I still get money per revenue. I still have some rights to this, but it's no longer mine. And
Yeah.
I think it's kind of like a child. At some point, like there's only so much you can do. I have to release you. I have to let you be free and do your thing. But I think also understanding that at some point, what may be best for your business simply may not be you
Yeah.
because you simply don't have the experience. You can still
Yeah.
have a stake in the business,
Yeah.
but you're not equipped with the knowledge,
I,
the network, it's the
yeah.
network to grow an international, even sometimes a national business. And that doesn't mean there's no fault of failure at all. It's simply you
Right.
don't have the knowledge to do so. You are not um you didn't grow up in circles to be with, you didn't grow up in C-suite.
Exactly.
You
Exactly.
didn't. And that is okay. But I think that these are the conversations that need to be happening, especially because you have, I think, was a 35% increase of businesses starting in the pandemic.
Yep.
And so I think there needs to be an investment in getting them out of that startup phase and into their growth phase. But when they get to this growth phase, it's not a slap in the face like me. It's just like my head has been spinning since December 3rd.
I
So
understand. I understand. You touched on many points, and I was reading some tweets recently about, you know, founders who exit or, you know, sell their business, the regret of it, right?
Mhm.
And I was looking also too at versus the success of like the Lip Bar and how they've been able to maintain their ownership
Pivot.
and kill it, right, and continue to
Mm-hmm.
expand. And so just thinking about like how do we approach this mindset? And I think one of the things I kept saying, and yours is yet, right? So, I mean, everything's teachable, everything's learnable. It's like, but then it's also like, what do you want to put your energy into? And
Mm-hmm.
so, I had a lunch today with one of my peer mentors too. And just like, I really enjoy the creative process. I really enjoy the scaling process and beginning to think about what's next. What I do need is to grow our team. So what are my weaknesses? How do I need to hire, you know, strategically? What are the priorities of hiring, of course? And I think there's so many options and availability. But to your point, since we are coming in as, you know, a lot of times first time entrepreneurs, first
Mm-hmm.
time business people, continuing like our family traditions and legacy, that there are a lot of gaps, and a lot of it is just really resource gaps. Um,
Yes.
who
Yes.
can cut the check, right? Like who
Mm-hmm.
can cut the check, and how do you get into those spaces, especially as Black people, and then also specifically as Black women, where we're always treated to like show and prove, and this is what we're seeing, of course, with the Supreme Court justice, like
Yes.
this really like
Mm-hmm.
over proving, overqualified. I've been able to do this
Clearly overqualified. She
clearly
checks every
overqualified.
single
I've
box.
been able to build a sustainable business on
Mm-hmm.
shoestring, literally, and then create, you know, a community and consumer base, and then you still got to prove. So and there are counterparts, white counterparts and white men specifically can just show up, you know, in a t-shirt and just say, "Hey, I got an
It's
idea."
insane. I've literally heard a story because, of course, I worked at Brown. That Brown has endowed the Center of Entrepreneurship, and I've heard this more than one occasion where some little white boy, a student at Brown, went to a cafe, sat next to this guy, they got to talking, and he walked up the $1 million deal.
Exactly. And so I think there's
Like,
this thing.
how?
I think there's this thing with Black women and Black entrepreneurship and the way we approach it, from this, limited mindset that says that it's based in reality. It's not false, but it is. How do we begin to break that barrier, and what are the conversations, and what coalitions do we need to be a part of? What
Yeah.
do we need to be building and creating? And that
Yeah.
was kind of some of the theme around here. Like, how can we better support each other in this business world, and then how can we show up collectively outside our circles to say, hey, this is worth investing. This is what we've been able to do with no major funding or backing. Imagine what we can do with some support.
Yeah, I definitely feel like, well, first and foremost, creating a sense of equity in those kinds of spaces. And so I think when we're talking about specifically the growth and expansion phase, you are considering more of the VC angel investment area.
Right.
And because of that, I would say more in the VC, it's more fiscally based compared to angel investor. They're more involved a bit.
Right.
But I think the thing is actually, so that's why I'm actually going to Brooklyn tomorrow. I'm going
Nice.
to Afrotech Executive in Brooklyn on
Nice.
Friday. But
I've been to the other one pre-pandemic. Amazing network.
to go. And so I was initially just going to go to the virtual one next month, but I met Aaron Samuels, who is one of the co-founders.
Yeah.
I happened to have gone to a panel discussion at Venture Cafe here in Providence, and he was on the panel discussing, where to find funds, talking about venture capitalism. And because he is a founder that transitioned into an investor, on that panel, it was him and two other men. He was the only one that transitioned from a founder to an investor. So he has a different perspective from them. So it's actually kind of fun having him say certain things. He's like, you don't do that. But if there's, once again, having that authenticity, he's also the only Black person on that panel.
Right.
Got to talk to him afterwards, learned that he's actually from Providence.
Wow.
I was like, congrats on, the conference, and I'm excited to go. And he's like, well, you're here, so just come to Brooklyn. And once again, just opening my mouth and asking, just telling like, once again, creating equity in the VC space. How do you do that? A lot of times we don't know, how do I inquire about an investor? I can't just walk up to be like, so I heard you got money. Can I have some? I can't do that. So now how to even approach venture capitalists, angel investors in general. How do you prepare for them? What do I need to have? Because you also had in the same conversation, one of the panelists, he's like, I invested in 2 women students. They hadn't even started their business. And I gave them, I forgot how much he said, but it was 6 figures.
Wow.
They had an idea. They did nothing yet, had an idea. And I was like, I have proven work. What do you mean you gave them money?
Exactly.
And I was like, he's like, they're actually sitting right behind you. I was like, and they're students at Brown. Ironically, one of them was a women's rugby player, so I knew her coach.
Okay.
So we talked about her. We connected on LinkedIn, which is fine, but very nice young ladies. Very, very nice. But even just stuff like that, it's like, I worked so hard. I managed 38 collegiate athletic teams by myself and built this. And I just built this. I have more than doubled in revenue every single year.
Wow. Yeah.
And I can't get a single grant. And you telling me, as far as an investor, you did these 2 little girls money sight unseen?
No numbers, no pitch deck, no nothing. I wouldn't even send a regular proposal without having it tight as possible. I don't.
They just had an idea. That idea was so wonderful.
Yeah.
But here I am thinking that I have to have a certain amount of revenue. I have to show proven history. I need to have my
P&L
sheets,
you probably
balance sheets ready. I do. But then talking to Aaron, just being like, I'm just trying to figure out how to scale. He's like, Trinity from Gold. So Gold, the supplement. He was her first investor. Wow. And he was like, well, I'll link you with Trinity. And you can talk to her and learn from her, how she scales her business. Bet. And so, and then we went to this mixer afterwards. And he, before we left the main panel, he gave me his email. He's like, shoot me email. And so we're both at the mixer afterwards. I left around midnight. He left a little before me. But I was like, it's like 11:30. I'm like, I need to email him before midnight. So it's the same day. So I emailed him. And I apparently crashed and fell asleep like right after I woke up, and I saw that he emailed me at 12:18 a.m. He
Nice.
responded to me like that night. I was like, oh, thank you. That's when he
Nice.
was like, come to Brooklyn. We'll talk more in depth there. We'll schedule another time to meet again in April. I was just like,
So,
yes. But
so
once
that is
again, I
the
think,
point, right? I think this is such a great point because one of the things I have experienced recently too is like during the pandemic, when everything shut down, business is so relational. You know, there is
yeah,
no substitute for being in person and having those
yes.
conversations and those touch points. I have gotten more done over the last 5 weeks, just going outside just a little bit, not even a lot, but like having in person meetings, having in person interactions, meeting people again outside
Mm-hmm.
has been trajectory shifting. And so I think one of the points in your illustration is just saying, hey, if you're knocking on doors via email and online, you need to go to the spaces and community where people that you need are. So
And
you
you're
know,
going to
we're
invest in yourself. So him inviting me to Afrotech. Thankfully, I got on the early bird ticket because
nice, right?
it ain't
It's
cheap.
an
But
investment. It's an investment for
it is an
sure.
investment. But even then, once again, acknowledging the fact that where I am, while I have some people here that are doing amazing things, these are amazing women with amazing businesses. I desperately need to be around people that are doing drastically better than me
Absolutely.
because I'm in a phase where I'm learning. I've never been in a startup, been in a growth phase before. I don't know what the hell I'm doing, but I know that
And
you.
to your point, you're not even surrounded by Black people who are you see that are doing it in the same way. You know, and
Some, I would say some are. So like
some are.
Toyin was on here before. So Toyin is the owner of Rome Loud, and her athleisure wear is now in Kohl's across the
Dope.
country. So there are some women that are absolutely killing it here.
Right.
But she's kind of like me. We're running everything by ourselves. But I mean, I think once again, having people that are doing substantially better than me, but not just better than me, but they've created the systems
Yep.
where your business is sustainable without me being present every day. And that's what I need.
All day, every
And
day.
so outside of just finding money, because absolutely I need money. Like I feel like what's that movie? It was like I need money. I need the funds to do what I need to do. But also just sitting and learning. I think a lot of times we being quiet and just listening and learning goes a very long way.
Absolutely.
Acknowledging that you do not know everything. I know in this area of business, I don't know shit. So I am very much aware that I am coming into this wet behind the ears, knowing nothing, and I am desperately wanting to learn how to do this because I clearly see I have something valuable.
Right.
And so it'd be a shame if this kind of goes to the wayside because I did not take the time to learn. I didn't take the time to invest in myself. Even this trip to Brooklyn this weekend, I decided to establish business credit because the grant process wasn't working, but my business is growing and I can't risk losing my business because I failed to fund it. So I'm like,
Right.
you know what? My credit's good right now. I'm gonna go ahead and apply. I got
It,
a really good one. And so I'm like, you know what? We're gonna slap it on this card until
yep.
my APR is no longer zero in 12 months. We're gonna figure it out.
Or figure it out, and you
But even
will. You'll be in such a
yeah,
different place, and I really feel like part of that is just kind of what you were saying. You're going there to be strategic. One of the
mm-hmm,
things that I was coached on very early on by one of my board member friends, Conrad, was like, know who you want to meet in that room, know your ask before you go in, be very clear and concise about what you need. Have
mm-hmm,
your, you'll have your pitch deck ready, available. Sometimes send it as a link, have it ready as a link. Like those things, I think that as Black women, we don't get that
mm-hmm.
benefit of the doubt. Like we need to go in prepared.
Yeah.
um,
Especially
and
when you're in a room with other like these like this is Afrotech executives. These are C-suite
exactly,
Black women.
yeah.
The most disrespect that you can give them is wasting their time.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
don't come up like,
Exactly.
"Hi, I'm Amber." It's like, do you know? Like, do your like you know who the panelists are? Do at least the most basic research of who these women are before you approach them.
Exactly.
Because even for me, where I am right now, I don't have the free time that I used to.
Yep.
My time is extremely valuable. So you coming late
Yep.
to me is disrespectful.
Yep.
Wasting my time is disrespectful. So if you ask for my time, please utilize it where you need to.
Absolutely, 1,000%. And I think the way I see it is like, what is this worth pulling me away from what I need to do for the business? You
Exactly.
know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And that's kind of how I use my evaluation. I think we covered so much about entrepreneurship, womanhood, all these things, and definitely trying to balance it all. And I think one of the honest pieces of it, and I think we're both kind of transparent on our social media about like, hey, I'm struggling. Hey, I'm up at 2 o'clock in the morning. I can't figure, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm still trying to balance this out. It's saying that sometimes, there are joys in it, and then sometimes it's really, a heavy weight. But we're pushing for, something better that we see.
Yeah.
And I think for me, I've been really trying to find the gratitude of the right now too. So this is beautiful right now. Uh, Look where it was a year ago, 8 years ago when we started, and we've been able to see. So why do I feel like I can't do it now? Like in for it now. So I think that's kind of my lens I've been working through. But let me just say this: I am proud of you, in how you show up in your spaces, and I'm excited to see all the things that will come over the next year and beyond. But like, when I see, like, you're gonna be fine. Like, you're gonna be fine. It's a hurdle or two or three or four,
Yeah.
but they're nothing that you can't overcome for sure. And really want to build more community and support, like how we can figure this out, and get there quicker. You know what I'm saying? For Black women. So thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Any final thoughts or words?
Um, just that you can purchase the teas at
Hey,
theblackleaftea.com. That does include it. So theblackleaftea.com. Also, we just started TBO Tuesdays. So if you join our community, which is a text feature, so you just text 401-399-4048. You can join our community for TBO Tuesdays, where you get a freebie or discount every Tuesday.
that is so dope.
Thank you.
I've
Also,
joined, by the way.
thank you. Also, I'm excited because we have a project coming up very, very soon, which I'm very excited about. I will be emailing you also. I just heard back from someone.
Yes.
Oh, let me see. I think that's it. I just spread the word. Also, like I said, my focus right now is wholesale. So if you have your favorite coffee shop, cafe, restaurant, boutique, hotel that you would like to see my teas in, you can just have them shoot me an email or shoot me their information. I can contact them, and we can possibly have my teas available anywhere in the U.S. Where you are.
That's such a dope expansion and pivot. And as like a great idea. And I see too that you've been going to corporate events and businesses and having taste testing. I think once people taste your tea,
they're sold.
they're
Yeah.
sold. They're sold. We're
Yeah.
in love. I have my personal favorite. What is if you had to say, hey, welcome to my brand, what's the first blend you recommend? As an intro blend.
Intro. Okay. Intro, I always say either Sunday morning or salud. So Sunday morning is a blend of chamomile, orange peel, lemongrass, and spearmint. So
Okay.
kind of like easy like Sunday morning. It's just a really nice calming feel to it. Not a sleepy time tea, just nice like anti-anxiety calming one. And then salud is a naturally like sweeter one. It's a blend of honeybush with rooibos, lavender, and rose petals. It's a nice honey-like flavor with a floral undertone to it. So a lot of times you use like lavender, has like kind of soapiness to it because it's so much, but no, some nice like subtle undertones. So it's just nice like hint of floralness to it. So those are two like simpler, easy way to like ease your way into it. Like more complex one, like Chi-Town is very complex, but is my #1 seller.
So good.
It's so good. And that one, I think that's the one I'm the most proud of because I did a lot of work on that one. So that one is just my individual tweak on a traditional chai.
Yeah.
So it is a black pepper chocolate chai. And so with that one, it is Assam black tea, cardamom, cloves, ginger, cinnamon, crushed black pepper. So it's more the floral notes of the black pepper and roasted cacao nibs. So that one, so like I said, like home, another favorite one, is more complex. I think a part of my branding is also accessibility.
Yeah.
There's a lot of gatekeeping around the wellness industry. You talk about the health and wellness of the Black community. Like I said, I grew up in a food desert, so there was not a single grocery store in my entire neighborhood. But I was very privileged where everyone in my household had a car, so we can go out to other neighborhoods, fill the fridge, and come back home. Compared to my neighbor down the block, who is a single mom with 3 kids, and she's on the bus. How could she possibly, go to another neighborhood and just like, fruits and vegetables, they're heavy, and she has
Right.
3 babies on her arms on the bus. She cannot do that.
Yep.
And I also had a garden in my backyard, so I was very privileged in that way.
Right.
But understanding the significance of nutrient dense foods being readily available in these neighborhoods, I think even with me, with my brain, being able to acknowledge the fact that food accessibility, nutritious food accessibility is a social justice issue. It's not just providing food, because that leads into, academic performances,
Yes.
professional performances.
Yes.
I think that once it's my soapbox, so once again, food science, food history, this is my thing. But I think once we stop acknowledging it's just food or just grocery stores, not just the type of food that's there. So like we had a corner store here in New England, bodegas. We had a corner store in my block from my house in Chicago, but we had the candy lady. We had, you get the Flamin' Hots in the bag with the cheese, the nacho cheese on top.
I had hot pickles and Kool-Aid.
Yep. You get the penny candies, the snow cones in the summer, the hot dogs and stuff, but we did not have the fruits and vegetables that you should be having, especially, in these neighborhoods. But once again, acknowledging that providing the 2 main things talk about humanity.
Yeah.
3, excuse me. Water, clean water.
Yep.
Adequate housing, nutritiously dense foods. These are human rights, and I think that once you start to acknowledge them, acknowledge the amount of gatekeeping in the wellness industry, food is expensive. Eating well is expensive. Housing, you can see it now, is expensive.
Right.
And so, for me with my blends, most people, they don't know what a Assam black tea or a Keemun snail black tea or a Century green tea is, but chamomile, peppermint. So if I can get you in the door with just this, and we can explore other things later, then I can do that. But it's still acknowledge I get to get you in the door and educate you about what these other blends are. Even if you just like the flavor, that's fine. But I think that I don't promote any like medical or like health related things, because legalities. I'm not being sued at any time ever. That's not happening. So it's just like I get all the time. Well, what tea can I use to lose weight? There is no such tea that will ever make you lose fat. No, I don't. The tummy, that's a laxative.
Right.
You're just losing water weight. That is not burning anything. So I think, once again, social media and all this other stuff, lack of education of the reality of these things.
What I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think you spoke on so much, and I completely agree that this is, a social justice issue. And I appreciate all that you're doing to close that gap, in the gap that is very intentional and structural, right? So
yeah, absolutely.
We're intentionally not getting in the grocery stores and the produce and the accessibility that we need to live healthier lives and have better health outcomes. And I think that tea is a beautiful way, both in ceremony and in pausing and wellness, to say, hey, have my body take a pause and reset and have some nutrients that otherwise it may not have received.
Yeah.
So yes, okay, so we got the blends. You're gonna come in on Salute, and what's the other one?
Salute and Sunday morning.
And Sunday morning. My favorite is Home, but she said that's complex, but that's my favorite. In Chi-Town. So go to blackleaf.com to find her. Follow her on social media at the Black Leaf Tea on all social media. You want to tell them where they can find you?
Yeah, so pretty much everything is just at the Black Leaf Tea. The website is theblackleaftea.com. So they just match. Like I said, join community. You can just text me if you want recommendations for like tea infused cocktail ideas, gift ideas, any kind of
We
questions.
didn't get to that because you talked about the wine earlier. I wanted to come back to like the
Oh, my
teas
bad.
and the blends. It's so much. It's so much. We got to do part 2. We'll do part 2. We're
Okay.
coming back. We're coming back. Don't worry. I'll get on your calendar for before
That'd be good. I will always make time.
Before it blow up.
Sooner than later. Sooner than later.
Indeed. All right, this has been so good. We can talk all day. We really appreciate you taking time to be with us and be really honest and authentic about the challenges and successes that you have experienced, and we're wishing you so much more success in the very, very near future. Shout out to rest and also productivity. So, of course, go to theblackleaftea.com right now and get you a blend. You can't go wrong. I have like 6 or so. You can't go wrong. Just get you'll be good. You can follow Starting With Today at Starting With Today on all social media, except on Twitter, we're starting W Today. You can find out more about Starting With Today at startingwithtoday.com. You can follow me at true_Charlene on all social media outlets. And we'll be back next week for the conclusion with my girl, Alexia Clinton.
Alexia.
Yes. So we are excited to have her. There's some, we know her. And so I'm such a fan of her as well as a friend. And so we'll be closing our Women's History Month with her. And this session, along with our previous session with Nay Marie, is already on YouTube. This is going on YouTube by tomorrow. And so we look forward to seeing you there. Check it out, share, of course, and then join us next week. All right, y'all be blessed. Have a good one. Stay well. Take care of each other.
Drink your water. Drink your tea.
Drink your tea.
Moisturize your insides. Don't be ashy.
Don't be ashy. And follow Black Leaf Tea because she got all the good vibes and good reels. She does it amazingly.
Thank you.
All right, y'all have a good night.
Bye.